You know, for centuries, the very identity of Nepal was etched into its skyline, a story told in beautiful timber, brick, and stone. But in the 20th century, a revolution began, a revolution of concrete and glass. So today, we're going to dive into the incredible story of how Nepal forged a brand new architectural identity.
For the longest time, the Malla period was really the golden age of architecture here. This is the era that gave us those iconic pagoda-style temples, these amazing palaces built around intricate courtyards, and those stunning, beautifully carved wooden windows. Everything was about symmetry, local materials, and, a deep, deep sense of tradition.
But even before what we think of as the modern era, a pretty dramatic shift was already happening. The traditional Malla style suddenly found itself standing in stark contrast to the Rana period's huge wave of Western influence. I'm talking massive, neoclassical palaces inspired by Greek and Roman designs. It was a completely different scale, a new ambition. This was really the first major break from centuries of tradition.
But what happened next? That was a true revolution. After 1950, Nepal opened its doors to the world in a way it never had before. And with that came a flood of new ideas, new materials, all pouring in. The age of brick and wood was about to have a head-on collision with the age of concrete and glass.
So we're about to meet the visionaries, both from Nepal and from abroad, who literally laid the foundation for modern Nepal. These weren't just people constructing buildings. They were building a new future, one incredible structure at a time.
So here's how it all went down. The revolution really kicks off around 1943 with one absolutely crucial building. Then, after 1950, the pace just explodes. By the 60s, Nepal's own homegrown graduate architects are on the scene. And by the 70s, international architects are making their mark. I mean, things were changing fast.
And this is the building that started it all, Saraswati Sedan. Designed by Bed Prasad Lahani, it was a true milestone. So why was it so important? Well, it was the very first building in Nepal to use a reinforced concrete structure. That distinctive curved facade was so unusual it even got a nickname, Golgar, which just means roundhouse. This was way more than a building. It was a statement.
So, with the door kicked open by pioneers like Lahani, the first generation of Nepali master architects started to emerge. And among them, one name really stands out. He's often called the founder of modern architecture in Nepal, Gangadhar Bhatta.
Bhatta was really inspired by global icons like Frank Lloyd Wright, whose philosophy you see right here. For Bhatta, buildings weren't just supposed to be functional boxes. No, they had to be organic. They needed to speak to their surroundings and really work in harmony with the society they were built to serve.
And his impact? It was immense. I mean, his vision literally shaped the modern landscape of Kathmandu. We're talking about everything from the iconic city hall to the entire master plan for the national stadium. His work also gave us the luxurious Salti Hotel and even the delicate greenhouses out in the Godavari Botanical Garden. The man was everywhere.
But Bhatta wasn't alone in this. Right alongside him was another giant of the era, Shankar Nath Ramal. Now, Ramal was a civil engineer by training, but he had the soul of an artist, the mind of an architect, and this really unique combination made his work truly groundbreaking. Ramal's whole approach was this masterclass in balance. His goal was to redefine Nepali space using modern technology, but he never wanted to lose a kind of spiritual quality. He was all about the purity of geometric forms, but at the same time, he made sure his designs were cost-effective. He wasn't just building, he was solving this complex puzzle of art, science, and spirit.
And his range was just incredible. He gave us the monumental Sahid Gate, which is basically a sculpture for democracy, and designed the Royal Nepal Academy Hall, the biggest auditorium of its time. He was even the site engineer for the new Narayani Hitti Palace. And then he'd go and create these wild, experimental homes like the Pangregar, or wheelhouse, which balanced this massive cube on just 2 concrete wheels.
So the work these Nepali pioneers were doing, it really set the stage for what came next. As Nepal's connections to the rest of the world grew, a number of really influential foreign architects were invited to come and contribute their vision to the country's modernization.
And they brought totally different approaches, which is fascinating. On one hand, you had the American architect Benjamin Polk. He was brought in to design the new Narayani Hitti Palace, and his goal was to create this powerful, brand new symbol for modern Nepal. But then on the other hand, you had the Swiss architect Robert Weiss, who took a completely different path. He basically created a hybrid style, blending modern structures with the classic pagoda roofs of traditional Nepal.
Polk's work, it was daring.
A perfect example is the laboratory school in Kirtipur. Just look at its roof, made of two massive concrete slabs. It was so striking that people poetically described it as a bird spreading its wings for a mountain flight. This wasn't just a school, it was a demonstration of what was suddenly possible with these new structural concepts.
But among all the foreign architects, there was one whose philosophy was maybe the most profound. Austrian architect Karl Prussia. He didn't just want to build on the landscape of Nepal. He wanted to build into it.
You see, his entire philosophy was built on this deep respect. Respect for the climate, for the existing landscape, and for the actual skills of local craftspeople. He used simple geometry, often inspired by the spiritual form of the mandala, to create buildings that just feel absolutely timeless.
And this is his masterpiece, the Seda building at Tribhuvan University. It's just incredible. He took the existing terraced landscape and designed this 8-story brick building that just flows with it. It literally becomes a seamless continuation of the man-made hill. It's a building that doesn't dominate nature, it becomes part of it.
Now, beyond his own amazing projects, Prussia's contribution to Nepal was monumental in another way. As part of a government assignment, his team conducted this incredibly detailed inventory of all the cultural sites in the Kathmandu Valley. They identified and documented 888 sacred sites. This was a Herculean effort, and it formed the very foundation for the valley being designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
So when you put it all together, these pioneers, Lohani, Bata, Rimmel, Polk, Prussia, and so many others, they gifted Nepal a whole new architectural language. It was modern, it was innovative, it was functional, but it was also deeply connected to the spirit and the landscape of the country. It was an identity that looked forward without ever forgetting where it came from.
But here's the urgent epilogue to this incredible story. As Kathmandu has urbanized at this just breathtaking pace, this unique heritage is now under threat. As the Kathmandu Post points out, many of these landmark projects are just gone. They've been replaced by generic, uninspired buildings that have none of the vision of their predecessors.
And that leaves us with a really critical question for today. As a new skyline continues to rise all across Nepal, what lessons can be learned from the bold creativity, the deep respect for landscape, and the thoughtful purpose of its very first modern masters? What can we take from them to build a better future?